All right, let's jump right in. When we think about the really big decisions a company makes, the kinds of choices that can define its entire future, we're talking about corporate level strategy. This isn't about some new marketing campaign. This is the view from the top of the mountain.
And really, it all boils down to one fundamental and surprisingly tricky question that every leadership team has to answer. What businesses should we actually be in? Seriously, think about it. Answering this one question sets the direction for everything else. Are you a car company, an energy company, a software company, or maybe you're a mix of all three? That's the game.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with that view from the top, just to get our bearings. Then we'll explore the four main paths a company can take: staying the course, expanding the empire, or even scaling back. And finally, we'll see how it all clicks together into one big strategic master plan. To really get what corporate strategy is all about, you have to understand that it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's actually the peak of a pyramid, and it influences every single thing that happens below it. Let's break down that pyramid.
You see, there are really three levels of strategy. At the very top, you've got corporate strategy. That's what decides the whole portfolio of businesses. Then, one level down, you have competitive strategy, which is all about figuring out how to win in each of those businesses. Are we the low-cost leader or the premium brand? And at the very bottom, you've got functional strategy. That's how departments like marketing and finance actually get the job done. But for our purposes today, we are staying right at the top, exclusively on step one.
Now, if we want to get a bit more formal, the source material gives us this great definition. And the key phrases here are selection and management of a mix of businesses. See, it's not just about picking which industries to play in, it's about actively managing that whole portfolio to create something that's worth more than just the sum of its parts. Okay, so let's put you in the CEO's chair for a minute. You're looking at your whole company, your entire portfolio. You've basically got four main directions you can steer the ship. These are often called the grand strategies, and they really are the fundamental choices you have to make. So here are your options. You can play it cool and stick with a stability strategy. You can go big and expand your empire with growth. You might have to scale back with retrenchment, or, as you'll see a lot of the big players do, you can use a combination of all three. Let's dig into each of these paths.
First up is the stability strategy. And it's so important to get this right. This is not about being lazy or coasting. Choosing to hold your ground is an active and often a really, really smart strategic decision.
So what does this actually look like? Well, it means you're focusing on what you already do best. You're serving the customers you know and love, and you're aiming for steady, small improvements rather than some massive, risky expansion. It's like you're fine-tuning the engine you already have, not trying to build a whole new car from scratch.
And you might be asking, why would a company ever choose to just stand still? Well, this slide shows you there are a ton of good reasons. If the economy is going crazy, hey, stability is safe. If you just had a massive growth spurt, you probably need to catch your breath and get organized. Or maybe you're in a mature industry where huge growth just isn't on the table. In any of these cases, choosing stability is a sign of strength, not weakness.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about the path most people think of when they hear the word strategy. And that is, of course, growth. This is probably the most common and definitely the most complex of the grand strategies, mostly because there are just so many different ways to do it. The source material breaks down growth into three main avenues. You can intensify your efforts in what you're already doing, you can integrate with other companies, or you can diversify into totally new things. Let's take a quick look at each one. And this classic chart, Ansof's grid, is the perfect tool for understanding that first method, intensification. It shows you four different levers you can pull to grow. You can go for market penetration, which is basically selling more of your current stuff to your current customers. You could try market development, taking the products you already have to new places. Or you can focus on product development, creating new stuff for the customers who already know and trust you.
Next up, we have integration. This is all about growth by combining forces. With vertical integration, you're buying up parts of your supply chain. Think of a car maker buying a tire company. On the other hand, with horizontal integration, you're buying a direct competitor to grab more market share. The classic example? One social media app gobbling up another one. And the final way to grow is diversification, jumping into new business areas. And there are two flavors of this. There's related diversification, where you move into a new industry that has some kind of connection or synergy with what you already do. The goal here is to leverage your strengths. Then there's unrelated diversification, where you buy a completely different business, purely to spread your financial risk. Kind of like an investor building a varied stock portfolio.
But, business isn't always sunshine and rainbows. What happens when things start to go wrong? When performance is slipping? Well, that's when a company might need to turn to the third path. And again, this isn't about admitting failure. Retrenchment is a strategic choice for survival and, hopefully, for renewal.
And the key word in this definition is right there, renewal. This whole strategy is designed to fix what's broken, to stop the bleeding, and to revitalize the company so it can get back on its feet and start competing again. It's kind of like corporate triage.
A full turnaround usually happens in two distinct stages. Think of it like a patient in the emergency room. First, you've got retrenchment. This is the emergency plan. It's all about survival. You cut costs, you downsize, you do whatever it takes to get things stable. And only after you've stabilized the patient can you shift to stage 2, recovery. That's the pivot back to growth, using that new, leaner foundation to start rebuilding.
So we've looked at these different paths. But how does this all work in the real world? Because out there, companies aren't always just picking one path and sticking to it. It's usually part of a much bigger, ongoing master plan.
And that brings us to the combination strategy, which, let's be honest, is the reality from most big, complex companies. I mean, think about a giant like Disney or Microsoft. They aren't just doing one thing. They are actively managing a huge portfolio of businesses. Some of their divisions are in hypergrowth mode. Others are just chugging along, providing stable cash flow. And maybe some underperforming units are being sold off. That is corporate strategy at its most advanced. Ultimately, I think this quote from the source material just sums it all up perfectly. At the end of the day, strategy is about connecting what you want to achieve, your ends, with what you have to work with, your means. It's about making the absolute smartest choices you can with the resources you've got.
So I'll leave you with a little challenge. Think of a big company that's been in the news lately. Now that you've got this framework, can you figure out which of these paths, stability, growth, retrenchment, or a combination, they're on right now? Because analyzing the real world like that, that's the absolute best way to make these ideas stick.